Farren Benjamin has been at Teague board leading sports business development for over 7 years. She also, as a side hustle, does marketing client maintenance for NFL players. She's a former NCAA athlete, D1 athlete. She is a rock star of epic proportions. And I just cannot thank you enough, Farren, for being on Brand of Fan Show, because I am seriously such a fan of yours.
No, Lauren, we go way back. I mean, I met you my first year at Teague board when we flew out for a sports PR summit, maybe my second year. And I know that we've kept in touch ever since, and we always find each other at random events that we don't actually like call each other beforehand. I don't know why we don't do, but we'll both see each other at conventions and all this other jazz and stuff throughout sports. So I've loved keeping up with you. I love hearing what's on the radar for you coming up soon. So I'm really excited, but love being on here and love supporting my friends in the industry.
Well, I love that you have such a background, and thank you so much for saying those things. You have such an incredible background in multiple sides of sports. You have participated at the highest levels of collegiate athletics. You have supported players who have gone on to even the highest levels of professional competition in the NFL, and you've stayed in those circles. And then from a business development side, you literally are in the meetings, the events, the teams, the leagues, like the biggest, coolest things. We were just talking before we started, and you're like, I'm going to be at Pro Bowl, Super Bowl, All-Star Game, da, 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 da. And I'm like, listen to you. Can you believe, like, is this always been your trajectory, or do you kind of pinch yourself when you wake up and you're like, wow, I get to do this thing, see these people?
It's fun. I will say, like, it's really fun. Like, sports is a very fun industry to work in. I think sometimes it gets like a little bit, over glamored for what it is, because a lot of the stuff that we do is very, on both sides of my world. The athlete representation side, as a marketing agent and a contract agent, and then on the Teague board side, leading up our business, sales team for sports. It's fun, right? But there is still always that, like, it has its ugly sides. But I would say that, being able to wake up and talk football all day, talk NBA, talk about video board sizes for NBA All-Star Weekend, like, it's fun, right? It's better than me looking at an Excel sheet and crunching numbers, or me having to kind of go sit in a courthouse. Those are kind of things that just aren't, necessarily a fit for me. But talking sports and football and video board sizes and how are we going to get fans to take their phones out all day, like, I will not complain that this is fun for me.
Yeah, let's start at the very beginning. Going way back, like, what are some of the first things you remember being a fan of, like, as a girl growing up? Did you grow up in Southern California?
Yeah, so I grew up in Southern California. I'm an only child. I'm an only child lefty, so two weird things that not very common anymore. But the first thing that I remember growing up is football. My family was really, really big into football. My dad played for most of his life leading up into college. My grandpa, all the men in my family played football. And I remember I became a fan of the game. My dad got tickets one day to USC Cal. We went to USC Cal game, and it happened to be in 2004. So for people that are fans of USC in 2004, that was Matt Leinart versus Aaron Rodgers in the Coliseum. And the second I went there, I was like, oh, this is crazy. Like, oh, this is nuts. That was my first college football game. And from there, it stemmed my love from USC. Some people know this about me, others don't. I only applied to USC. I took every egg and put it all in the same basket. And people are like, don't do that. It's not safe. It's going to backfire. Well, it backfired. I got rejected with a 4.3 GPA, being a 4-time athlete, 4-time ASB and all that stuff. And I ended up going to community college for a year. I took 50 units. That's 50, not 15. 50 units in 1 year, and got right on back to USC where I knew I belonged. So it's football has kind of started this whole journey off for me. We started off back in the day. My grandparents were Rams boosters. They used to fly on the planes with the guys to the Pro Bowl and stuff. And my dad's friend from high school married the equipment manager of the Rams and his family. So we had always kind of been traveling around. When the Rams left LA, we'd go to St. Louis all the time. So football has kind of always been the center of what has kind of helped me make these decisions, decisions for college, decisions on where I want to go to college, decisions on what I want to do. Most people don't know, but I played boys football at Los Al. So Los Alamitos High School is down there in Orange County. I played under John Barnes, and I played boys football. I was a weak side DB, so I played corner and got pretty lit up most games. Almost broke a jaw another game, which that guy ended up going to USC. So that was a fun encounter when I got there because I remembered his name. And then I looked at the thing and I was like, gosh, that sounds like the guy who like lit me up and almost broke my jaw. It was. And so I'll leave his name out, but ended up becoming a friend at USC. But football has kind of been the core of what has helped me guide myself from being in high school to college to now, both sides and both facets of my career.
Oh, I think that's just amazing. And it really just speaks to the impact of, a fandom, like how that really can influence somebody. You said it shapes your whole life, the milestones, the steps, the decisions that you've made. And that's something I still feel is very unique to fandom. Like there's not a lot of other influence that happens like externally that we can become a part of. And as we're growing up, like what your family does kind of becomes a part of that, what maybe your church group does, or kind of other community things might influence. But truly, I think for me, fandom really speaks to the heart of like what connects you at your core and your essence, and then seeking family and connections kind of because of that shared enthusiasm.
You're exactly right.
You've seen that through your own experience as well.
Yeah. And it's funny, like people always say like, well, give me your favorite teams. I don't have favorite teams. I work, on the tech side of things, at Tag Board, we work with 185 different logos throughout sports. So I'm a fan of the Eagles this day, and then I'm a fan of, the Giants this day, and then I'm a fan of the Cowboys this day, and then all of a sudden here we go the Lions. And so I don't really have, when it comes to fandom, I'm just a general fan. Obviously with my NFL athletes, they're on 13 different teams and here, there, and everywhere. And then these get traded here and there. And so I'm a fan of sports, but I don't have, people always ask, what's your favorite teams? I can't have those. I can't. I have to be very unbiased to everybody that I work with and everybody that gives me the opportunities to work with them, both in the team and the athlete side.
Yeah, I used to say that every PGA Tour player was my favorite player, even if they're not all your favorite player. Like when you're working for or representing or working with, in that arena, like they're all because, and also part of that is just kind of keeping the peace with
really though.
Wow.
There's been some times where I'm like, ooh, let me get my Twitter. And I was like, they are a client of mine. I cannot talk about the Pac-12 championship game. Never mind. And then I just put my phone right down.
Yeah, you just file that away. You put it in a DM somewhere.
I like you guys when you don't beat my Trojans, but I was like, I'll just leave this one there. I'm a fan of you guys. I'm just going to leave this one there.
Talk about a little bit about pulling the phone out, because that is actually the essence of what Tag Board has been able to build upon, is capitalizing not on what's happening on the field, but the fans' perspective and what they're doing around that. Can you share a little bit about kind of maybe not the origin story, but like how Tag Board's technology has empowered teams and leagues to put the power back into the fans' hands?
Yeah. So Tag Board's an Emmy-nominated audience experience platform. So we are designed to help storytellers from sports, news, entertainment, media produce the most engaging content. And so, when I go out there, my job at Tag Board is to meet with teams and leagues and broadcast entities and these tentpole events that you're going to see all throughout the next few months here. My job is to help them promote and bring to life these cross-channel conversations. So when I'm sitting there, I'm thinking about, okay, if I'm a fan in the stands, what could this team do to drive me to their website, to download their app, to subscribe to their podcast? And then if I'm at home, and I'm sitting at home and I'm not at that AFC championship game, or I'm not at game 6 at the Chase Center, how can I feel more of a part of it, like as if I was there? So I'm always kind of thinking in that way, is how do we amplify the fans' voices, and how do teams kind of collect on that? How do we say, we have all these fans cheering from everywhere. How can we all get them to do one thing or two things? How can we drive them to be bigger, better, more spending, and more frequent fans? And that's kind of how my brain thinks on a daily basis, is how do we kind of continue to get the fans coming back for more content, more games, more autographs, more this and more that, while keeping them all within the ecosystem of that team or that fan base.
Is there a secret sauce to that? Is there something that like is a repeatable process, or if we spend X amount of time focused on the story or the UGC, the user generated content, it will create that? Like, do you have a little recipe that you put into motion?
I wouldn't say there's a secret sauce. Like obviously the UGC and fan content is always something that people like. Like everyone likes seeing themselves on billboards, video boards, on TV. Like, it's like when you watch the morning news and you see people behind the news anchors, like waving and whatnot, and the producers in the fields and stuff, you kind of laugh, but you're like, everyone just wants to see themselves. They want their moment in the sun. And so for me, like there is no recipe, right? Like, but the only bad recipe is nothing.
Sure.
And like I always tell people, the more content, the better, the more options, the better, because not all fan is the same. If you say, okay, yeah, more podcasts, well, maybe not all your friends like podcasts or all your fans like podcasts. So maybe you do, okay, a few more podcasts here, maybe a few more live shows here, maybe a few more sweepstakes and giveaways here, maybe a few. And so it's kind of just like putting everything in the box and shaking it up. But then, everything that kind of we build off of is all based around data. So one of my biggest things is how can I put together activations for fans and brands and teams and everybody? And how can I get people to continue coming back for more? Mm-hmm. And what does that fan look like? I balance this with my NFL clients, and I balance this with my tag board clients. And it's like, what is the ideal fan and what does that fan look like? Because if I can figure out what Zaire Franklin needs to do to get more fans and more people to help support his toy drives, I could then narrow in on that. And then we now make that toy drive successful for the community, the people of Indianapolis, the people of Philadelphia, and all that jazz. And, same with tag board. If I can provide data, where are most of your fans coming from? Where are they calling out from? Are they in Hoboken? Are they in, Long Island? These are things where it's just kind of like, if we can figure out the data behind the fans, on any side of a fan, that's kind of where we can make better decisions on what is that secret recipe for that fan base.
Absolutely. I think that using the data, we're always asking for some sort of transaction with a fan as a brand or a marketer. You're asking to get someone's data, whether it's their cookies or their login or, their email address or something. And very few, it feels like from the user experience, you don't get a whole lot of return for that, right? Like, yeah, you maybe got a download or you maybe got a shout out or like you got now or the recipient of 8 emails a week, like great. But there's not necessarily like that value transaction. And so I'm making a mental pin. I'm going to speak with Tim Hayden, who's the CEO of Brain Trust. And they work with big brands on leveraging data and privacy and cybersecurity concerns and all of that. So making a mental note to like return to that with that conversation with him. I think it's really interesting how you kind of think about who is the ideal fan and what do they mean? And then acknowledging like not all fans have the same motivations. And certainly like we know that like you might be a diehard for USC and then, but like an adjacent fan for like maybe professional golf or something like that. But I think it's also true that we are not like what we express through sports or entertainment can also be emulated on the brand side. So it's, do you always drive Jeeps? Are you a loyal frequent flyer of us? For me, it's Alaska Airlines. Oh, Delta. Yeah, I love Delta too. Right. So if you're listening, Alaska Airlines, come sponsor the podcast. So if, so where do you see the crossover between like what we know about fandom and the ideal fan or the ideal audience member? And then thinking about how could a brand unpackage that and actually implement some of those lessons.
Yeah, that's an interesting side. And these are things that like I said, that come across my desk that we put a lot of thought behind and stuff. And it's like, what, when we're looking at a team, we're looking how to activate the players and the fans together with that team. My biggest thing is, okay, what sponsors do we have that you guys currently have linked to social? Are they fan driven? Like, are they like Pepsi? When you think of Pepsi, you think of that like halftime Super Bowl, old halftime, sponsorships. You think of like their commercials of just them in the sun, summertime, and everyone's like running around. And so you think of like a really fun brand. So if someone says, hey, we have a Pepsi sponsorship for this, there's a lot of things I can do with Pepsi because I kind of have an idea of their brand. Mm-hmm. Now, if you were to come up to me and say, well, I have a brand and it is, I don't want to throw anybody on the bus because every brand is different. But if you had a brand that just wasn't as big and kind of a smaller brand, like sponsorships that I never see in the major sports I work with, like a Patagonia or an REI. huge sponsors, most likely in the Olympic sports space and in the winter sports space. But if you were to put an REI or a Patagonia for the Los Angeles Lakers, sunny Southern or sunny SoCal, with a brand that's like, we don't really wear padded vests and we don't really wear, big snow jackets and thermals and stuff. You kind of have a little bit of a disconnect there because you have, basketball players. I'm not sure if a lot of them wear REI, Patagonia, those kind of things. But at the same time, it's like you also have a regional problem. Yeah. So for me, there's no bad, like I said, it's not that it's not a fit in sports. It's not a fit for that team in that region. Whereas if you were to say, oh, the Ottawa Senators are sponsored by Patagonia, I'd be like, brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody walking the building is wearing that. So that's kind of how I think of it. It's just kind of figuring out when we're diving through, what are you trying to get fans to do? It's also like, let's make sure that brand and where you're trying to plug them in at, it makes sense. And I'm really big about this with my clients. I work on a lot of foundations. I'm on the board of a lot of foundations, and I always ask our clients and whatnot. I sit on the board of the Allison Hope Foundation. And what we always talk about is when we're looking to partner with brands or even just locking down venues, we always ask ourselves, does this make sense? Mm-hmm. And the CEO, Jeremiah Allison, who created the foundation, we always have these very if we bring this brand in, will this upset the other brands that you work with for these events? So these are things that we really have to think about, because there are certain brands that work better for certain events based on certain times of the year, but we also don't want to bring a brand in and then make a brand feel left out or not wanted and not want to come back and work with us, around the holidays. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just like, oh, let me pick up the phone and call XYZ. There's a lot that goes into just making sure that it's a right fit, whether it's in sports, whether it's with an athlete foundation and an event. There's a lot more that goes into it than just like, let me just call my favorite brands. Let me call Traeger. Let me just pick up the phone. It's
right. Because like you're saying, it might make sense to a person, well, these are all the things that I like.
Right.
But if you try to put all of those things into one puzzle, then the pieces aren't going to necessarily line up in the same way that they do for one specific person. So that makes a ton of sense. I'm thinking about your experience as an athlete and in the UGC creator space, and being able to amplify those things. And now today, athletes, NCAA athletes are the creators. They are the influencers, right, that thanks to name, image, likeness laws changing on the books in 2021, now athletes are able to be more of those creators and be monetized accordingly for that. Now, I'm sure you have a lot of opinions. A lot of opinions on specifically NIL.
How long can this go?
Well, but I think I'm really curious, as you're advising clients, either who are still in college, or potential clients who are still in college, or looking back at your own experience, how does someone who's starting to build their personal brand make sure that they're aligned with brands, because even the local pancake house now can use a platform like Open Doors or Open Sponsorship to create and hire a track athlete or a lacrosse player or a volleyball player to do a post about the pancakes and the nutritious breakfast they get at their hometown diner, right? So it's NIL is accessible to everybody from a marketing side, as well as everybody from an athletic side. But how do we make sure that those are the right pairings for relationships?
So let's see. I have so many thoughts. They're just all at the front of my membrane right now. Okay. NIL is great. I love NIL. As a former athlete, especially a female hammer thrower, if you were to take USC sports, you're going to line them all up, men's, women's, put it all together. If you were to go order of importance, a female hammer thrower has to be the bottom three of that list. Real talk. And that's coming from one myself. So as an NIL athlete who probably wouldn't have gotten any NIL deals herself, I love it. I love it for people. I love that these people can become businesses. I love that they can start making money to provide for themselves. Don't even get me started on how a stipend stretches in Iowa versus Los Angeles for UCLA and USC. Don't get me started on that conversation. I love that people can have the means to find additional revenue for what they bring to the table. Now, where this gets dicey, and this is exactly what you had just said about brands. Athletes have to be really strategic on who they associate themselves with and start doing partnerships with. For example, if you're approached by I'll call it a beverage company in college, and they're local and they just started brewing these drinks. I don't know what kind. I'll keep it very vague. They started brewing athletic drinks. They want to partner with you because they're local, hometown, your college is right there, and you make sense. And an athlete goes, oh, money, let me grab it. What they have to also think about is, am I a big enough name to where Body Armor, Essentia, Smartwater, those big top tier companies, Pepsi company, which owns everything underneath the sun. Am I, by doing this deal, am I going to be messing up the bigger money over here? And that's our biggest problem with NIL is you have people that are acting as consultants. They're acting as money managers, or you're going and getting advice from family members who are not educated in the marketing, brand, social media space. But until you really evaluate what it is you're going to attach yourself to, evaluate if there's any potential other offers that may be on the table, maybe like after you win the Heisman or after you complete your 4 years and your team goes to the national championship, or after, so it's one of those things where that's where we're having a problem in the NIL is, you have people that are signing clothing deals from places on Melrose or places on Fifth Avenue, but like Nike was really into you, but you didn't take the time to like dive through. If I sign this deal here, would Nike still want to hang out with me here? Like that's what we're not doing, is our vetting process is flawed. Okay. That's our problem.
Yeah. Well, what if you're not the sexy brand or you're not the sexy industry, but what if you're the healthcare company or, the rental car agency or the mom and pop from somebody's hometown? Does it make sense for them to explore NIL as a influencer creator play when we know that organic social media is and 100%. Using creators is the way to go?
100%. Like I said, the mom and pop shop, there's a place over here in LA that we partner with all the time, the Serving Spoon, and mom and pop shop. We love it. It speaks to the community in which we serve here with some of the foundations that I work with, and it just makes sense. And so for that, there's no harm there. It's if you're a person that loves that restaurant or that entity or whatever that is locally, that body shop, it absolutely makes sense. Because at the same time, the likelihood of another body shop being on the table and being mad that you're partnering with the one on this street versus that street is probably really low. Another pancake place is a pancake place, and fighting over you over pancakes, probably pretty low. So those deals, as long as they're mutually beneficial for both parties, 100%. Because for me, I'm from a small town in Orange County. I'm from a city called Rossmoor. Rossmoor is an unincorporated city within Los Alamitos. Los Alamitos and Rossmoor are not the same thing to people who live in Rossmoor. And so when I say Rossmoor, people are like, Rossmoor. But if you're watching this podcast and you know what Nick's Burritos is, then you already know what that place means to Rossmoor. And so people will come into that. So if I'm sponsored by Nick's Burritos and Nick's Deli, you best believe I'm going to take that deal, because I don't think any other delis, Italian style delis, are going to be coming after me.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I mean, if Nick's is listening, what's up, everybody? Love ya. Can't wait to see you this weekend. Would love to be sponsored for Burritos for Life. But in any case, that I love those. I love those small town partnerships. I love the smaller brands, getting a piece of their cut. I mean, how many of us knew what athletic brewing was before this year?
Yeah,
I now, as a person who loves beer, I love USC. I love beer. Caleb Williams is a spokesperson for athletic brewing. He has a sponsorship with them. I'm kind of interested. What does your IPA taste like? What does the IPA taste like? I'm now interested. So never knew what athlete brewing was or athletic brewing was before this year. Now I'm like, I hope I run into one of those in the store so I can grab a pack.
Yeah.
So like I said, a no name. It's not Essentia. It's not Smartwater. But it's like they're getting on the map. They're starting small, getting on the map.
Yeah. And I think that's so important for, it's that you don't have to be Nissan. You don't have to be Dr. Pepper. You don't have to be sponsoring a halftime show to actually get some juice out of a marketing relationship now in sports. So that's pretty
exciting. I have a fun question for you. What is one commercial? What is one commercial that makes you, like, when you see it, you're like, I really want that. I have two of them, and there's only two in the world that have ever made me go, that one worked.
Okay. I'll give you my answer and then I'll tell you, and then I want yours. I don't want that. but I am a proud USAA member because my husband served 7 years in the Navy. Oh, and so we do have USAA insurances, and I happily love when the brands that I'm already associated with or do business with do really good marketing campaigns.
Yep.
And I think the Rob Gronkowski sketches are so funny because they just keep going.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just humorous to me that they've positioned him, and like, and it feels fairly authentic that he's like, like I have all these things and I can't be a USAA member. And that's like, and I'm trying to do these things to become, or, to be eligible. And I think it's like a kind of a shout out to the military community,
right?
Because only a very small percentage of Americans actually enlist to serve or sign up to serve. And someone who has had such an incredible career like Gronk, and has everything he wants, like there's a cool dichotomy there. So I already am a USAA member, but I think that is one that I'm always like, that works for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a huge fan of his, but I'm a fan of how the brand came together in a way that like makes it authentic and humorous.
Right. No, I love that. Those commercials are really funny. Disclaimer, I do not drink soda. I will have a soda once in a blue moon when I'm at a Mexican restaurant. I just feel like those two things go really well together. When I see Dr. Pepper commercials, it could be anything. It could be Fansville. It can be Heisman House, whatever it is. I'm like, dang, I really want a Dr. Pepper right now. And I look around like I have them. I don't think I've ever bought a case of soda since I left college. So over a decade. But like when I see Dr. Pepper commercials, I'm like, it just makes me want a Dr. Pepper. Same with Cheez-Its. I'm like, I could really go for some crunchy Cheez-Its right now.
Yeah.
It's like during college football bowl game season, it's like you see so many of the same commercials. You're like, I would do anything not to see that Cheez-It commercial again for the 17th time during the Rose Bowl. But like, I really do sit there and I'm like, if I had a nice box of Cheez-Its right now, this would be a little bit.
And a little Dr. Pepper.
They get me every time.
I'm like, soon.
Every time I'm like, God, a nice Dr. Pepper sounds great. Like,
yeah.
Do I ever do it? No. But if I had one in my possession at the time of the commercial, it would have definitely put me into action.
And then you might actually consider, like, next time you're shopping for like a game day, like I'm going to somebody else's party. I can leave it there at the end, but I'm just going to have a handful of Cheez-Its and, a small Dr. Pepper. Absolutely. Grab that too.
I think I'm not going to out myself, but I am. I did that during the national championship game in the control room. They had a nice snack lounge right next to it.
Oh yeah.
Grab me some Cheez-Its, put it in there. And I did iced tea instead of Dr. Pepper. I don't think they had Dr. Pepper in that lounge. But I sure got my fair share of Cheez-Its that night.
CFP, I am a fan of the CFP and the team there. They do such an amazing job.
The best.
They put on an incredible event and experience for even the people who are working the event. And I was fortunate enough to go in, I think it was the 2020 CFP down in San Jose, and you and your friends from Teague were there. I actually helped produce some of the content on the ground. That was super fun. But getting to go in and experience that is not a game I really would typically turn on. I'm not as big of a football fan as you are, but since doing that and having that experience and seeing what happens behind the scenes, yeah, I'm in. And I think that's the key, right? I think that some sort of experience that's either emotional or physical, like you have it not only becomes a story that you can tell and share, but it just having that, if it's a good experience, then you're more likely to be willing to kind of get extra emails or be opted into some list or, consider them again and again. So whether it's Cheez-Its or like, something you get to do, I think that those things all play into, the repeatable ways that we can create fans.
Right. And honestly, I would be not doing my Katie Cavender from College Football Playoff a disservice if I wouldn't be shouting her out right now. Katie Cavender is the glue to why so many people love working with them in December and January. Like, I have never met someone in the industry who puts so many people on blast, helps them get job placements, helps them get their master's degree, helps them get into sports business programs. Like, Katie Cavender is literally like a dear friend of mine, but I'm like, how do I channel that energy? And how do I channel, like, she's the kindest person I've ever met. Yeah. And like, but like her kindness and the way that she builds the team around her, and the way that her content team, her digital team, her comms team, her every team, it's like they all are like little walking versions of Katie. And so when you interact with them, you're like, you feel like you're talking to Katie, but Katie's like all the way over there managing 70,000 other things that she's doing. And it's just like, it's such I just never met somebody in the industry that just brings in so many people as interns for that time period. And then they go off and they're like, hey, I'm the GM of the Clippers. You're like,
of course you
the
are.
Katie Cavender tree too? Like,
yeah.
no.
Yeah. They talk about coaching trees, but I think you're right. I think there are some very specific social content, digital trees.
She gets it.
And she is definitely the head of one. So that is Katie, you are on notice. We are going to ask you to join Brand a Fan Show, because I think I want to unpack that. I want to unpack how you build teams and help people, and why, how you got so good at that. That is a huge part of it. So very cool. I would be remiss, Farren, if I didn't have you on and I didn't give you a shout out of your own. In September, you passed the NFLPA licensure. So tell me a little bit about what that means. I know you were already doing marketing and client maintenance, but what does it mean to be a female contract advisor for the NFLPA?
Yeah. Thank you for that. I'm really excited. I get super emotional talking about it. It was something that I set out to do about a year and a half ago. You know what it is? I've been in this industry for so long. I've seen what I think is all of it, but trust me, you've never seen it all in here in sports. But it was one of those things I want to do for me. Because I was sitting in these rooms and I'm like, okay, I can do this, I can do that, I can do that, but I legally cannot sit in that room over there with those guys. And for me, it was like no, I deserve to sit over there. Like, there's a seat for me over there. So I ended up studying for 6 months for that exam. They offer it one time, one day a year in July. If you pass, great. If you don't, another 365 for you. And I only told about, I want to say 7 people. No one knew I was taking, because I did not. The reason I originally got denied from USC is I standardized testing is really bad for me. I don't do tricks. I don't do like pick the best answer. Like, no, I'm going to tell you what the answer is. Give me a place where I can write it down. So standardized testing for me is really nerve wracking. It's not that I get nervous. It's kind of boring to me. It's boring when you're just sitting there reading. I'm more of like an interactive test taker. And so knowing that was how the test was, I was like, I'm not going to tell anybody. I don't want to disappoint myself. And then everybody who's counting on me and everybody who's cheering me on. So I kept it really, really quiet, and whatnot. So learning that I passed on the first try, now that I'm able to, I'm so excited. I don't have any clients yet on the contract side. I'm working on that. This is going to be my first off season, where I can really dive into recruiting and understanding the type of guys that I want to recruit. I have a very good, I have a good idea of the type of athlete that I'm looking for that would suit me. And not least importantly suit me, but me being able to suit that type of player. So I have an idea of different guys that I would recruit at different guys and positions that I'm very familiar with, versus other positions. So I'm just really excited to kind of be able to have a seat at that table that's usually full of grown men.
I love that. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. It's such a cool thing. And it's such an accomplishment. It speaks to, I think, there can't be very many female contract advisors in the NFLPA. I mean, we're severely underrepresented across all professional sports. And I just think that you having a seat at that table in that room is going to make a huge difference. I think that the way you carry yourself and the way that you see the world is so much different than a lot of the people who usually sit in those rooms. And I'm so excited to see how that influences, the type of player that you attract and the deals that you can get done for them.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I'm nervous. I'm really, really nervous. You take the test, but after the test, there's no guidebook. There's no okay, now that you're an agent, let's get into it. It's just like, now that you're an agent, good luck. So it's been really scary. Because my biggest thing is I don't ever want to mess it up, right? We're talking about people's lives, livelihoods, their careers, their families. So I want to make sure that when I do it, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to do it the best. And so I'm starting to put those pieces together for myself so then I can be the best and present my best foot forward to athletes that I will potentially represent in the future. So Like I said, I'm really excited about it. My first big, like, you're now an agent is going to come in about a month here. I'm going to be heading to the combine, which I know is where they have agent meetings and you start kind of chatting with teams, chatting with people, understanding where things stand. So I'm really excited. I'm going to be accompanied by Chris Ellison, the agent that I've worked underneath for, and alongside for the last, this will be draft class 8, I think, 8 or 9. So he's been a great mentor, a great person to learn from. He is the epitome of what you'd want an agent to be. He's a family man. He makes his clients become a part of his family, and he does what's right by people. And so that's what I hope to be. I hope to be someone that just does right by people, gets people, generational wealth, helps them build generational wealth, and puts them in positions and locations and with teams and stuff that fit that, who they are as a player.
Yeah, I didn't think I could be a bigger fan of yours when we ended this conversation than when we started, but I am. I love your heart. I love your drive. I love what you're doing. You take no bullshit from anybody.
Oh man, call me that.
Yeah, you and I actually sat on a panel that we built, that was called Breaking the Glass Ceiling, and about women in sports. And no one I would be more prouder to sit next to on a panel if anybody wants to have us back. I think
we're ready. We're ready to speak. We can do matching outfits too. We can do like hot pink suits and stuff, whatever you're looking for.
USC and Oregon State jerseys. We can do that.
We can do that. We can be friends and hug it out.
Yeah, that's fine. We need to set in a good example. Farren, before I let you go, I want to ask the 2 questions that we're asking everybody on the Brand to Fan show. Even though we're only a couple episodes in, I want to ask you these questions as well. The first one, Farren, what are you today a fan of right now?
Brands?
Whatever you're a fan of.
Oh man, gummy bears. Haribo, give me a call. My waistline won't love you, but I sure my heart will. I love gummy bears. I think about gummy bears often. Always a fan of a nice tequila or a nice bottle of red wine. I love Delta. Like, Delta's been so good to me. I'm on the road all the time, so I like airlines that just have it all, and they're usually on time and they take care of me and my family. Huge. I'm not a big, I get so overwhelmed with media and stuff that I have to kind of like divide my time. I'm a huge fan of 2 new properties outside of this podcast, of course. Huge fan of what they're doing over at Omaha Productions. I think the Peyton and Eli simulcast, I didn't watch a regular NFL Monday Night Football game if they had Eli and Peyton on. True. It was 100% there. I'm also a huge fan of the Pivot podcast. I've been really tuning in. They have some fantastic guests, on the Pivot podcast, and I've been a huge fan since they broke off and started their own thing. I think I've got to learn about coaches and whatnot. Raheem Morris is probably one of my favorite interviews they did. Obviously, they did one with Reggie Bush. That was insightful as well. But they have so many great guests and stuff that I'm a huge fan of that right now. When it comes to just things, those are some of the things that are on my mind. Tequila, gummy bears, Peyton and Eli, Delta, obviously. But those are kind of some of the things that are constantly on my mind. That's
amazing. Well, if we can somehow get Peyton Manning on the Brand to Fan show, then I will buy you the nicest bottle of tequila that Jay Bear, tequila teacher Jay Bear, who's episode number 1 of Brand to Fan show. I will take his recommendation and I will exchange you a bottle of Jay's favorite tequila for an appearance from Peyton Manning. So
I will come hold the lighting if Peyton's going to come. If he's going to come, you guys can do it on site or something. I'll hold the lights.
Perfect.
I'll hold my hands like this.
We'll just call him up. We'll just offer him a little round of golf, and I'm sure it'll work. It's fine. Easy. That's amazing. Okay, second question. So, what is your all-time favorite jersey or piece of fanwear that's either in your closet today or you can't believe you let go of some other time?
So, back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast. My dad's friend from high school married the Rams equipment manager. So during the greatest show on turf, the Kurt Warner era, the Orlando Pace, the Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, that era, I actually have Kurt Warner's locker from St. Louis, like his locker. I have the whole piece, the whole square box of it. I have his locker from the greatest show on turf era. So I don't know how often they got new lockers in their locker room, but when they were tearing stuff down, my dad got a phone call and said, I think Farren might like this. I am trying to figure out a way to get it into my my queen's quarters here. And it's not a man cave, it's queen's quarters. I'm trying to get it placed in my queen's quarters here, but I got to figure out the feng shui of my room. So to be determined if I get it in here, but I do own that, and I'm very
wow. I am going to need to see a picture. We're going to put it on the show notes of this episode so that we can, put that right next to that plus a Peyton Manning picture. I don't know, maybe.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. That is so cool.
It's awesome. It's yellow. It's yellow. It's like, looks like the drawers of, it looks warm. It looks warm. It's awesome. But I will say, when you have a locker and you don't have all the other ones next to it, it's kind of like a little bit of a wobbly piece.
Yeah.
You gotta, just
good for a corner.
Wood, nameplate wood, drawer wood. It's really cool. It's old school. It's cool.
I love that. Farren, where can our listeners, our viewers of the Brand of Fan Show follow you, connect with you online?
Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn, just Farren Benjamin. You can find me on LinkedIn. My Twitter and Instagram handles are both at Farren Benjamin. So just my full name. You can find me there, here, there, and everywhere. You can call me. I guess all of our phone numbers are on Zoom info and everything else nowadays. So I'm always reachable. I love helping people. I love connecting with other people in the sports industry. I love actually going outside with other people in the sports industry. So let's all go outside. So if you're going to reach out to me, let's plan something fun so we can meet in person and shake hands and hug and stuff.
That's amazing. This is the Brand of Fan Show. We are the podcast that unpacks the phenomenon of fandom to help you build for the future by creating more fans. You can find the show notes for this episode with Farren and every episode on brandtofan.show. If you love this episode, like I love Farren, do not forget to subscribe, rate, review, and tell somebody about the Brand of Fan Show. I am Lauren Teague, and she is Farren Benjamin, my guest for today. Thank you so much. I will see you somewhere because, lady, you are everywhere.
I love it. Thank you, Lauren, for having me on. I love this. I love supporting my girls in sports. Go us, go women in sports, and I'm excited to support, and I will see you soon.